Yo! What's up, diggity dogs?
You're watching Fugitive Red-Eye, and welcome to another movie review. I'm finally getting around to reviewing Saw X, which I saw a few weeks back, when my friend Spencer was back in town. We watched it on Xbox Video. I just bought it on there, because he kept insisting to me it was good, and guess what? He was right. So we'll jump right into it. As you guys know, I love the Saw movies. I skipped Spiral, because Spiral looked like shit. And, Spencer saw it. He told me it was shit, so there you go. This video will have spoilers, so you have been warned. So, as the name would imply, Saw X is the 10th Saw movie, which is a bit funny, because I thought they tried to say that Spiral wasn't a Saw movie, but was a spin-off, right? Because it was Spiral from the book of Saw. Whatever. Spiral's trash, and I never saw it, and never will. Plus Tobin Bell wasn't in it. But guess what? He sure as hell was in this one. Because unlike all of the other Saw movies, John Kramer, Jigsaw himself, is the fucking protagonist of this movie. And for those of you with cucumbers for brains, what the protagonist is the hero, right? The main character. Like, he's not literally a hero, but the main character, right? The one whose point of view we're getting, the one that we root for. Whereas in most Saw films, he's the antagonist, the villain. This movie is set between Saw 2 and 3. It would have to be because, obviously, John Kramer dies in 3. So at this point, he's already well into his killing, but it hasn't fully played out yet. Well, he hears about this miracle cure that he can get that will get rid of his cancer. He hears about it from some guy in one of his cancer support group classes. So he goes and tries to get this miracle cure, wanting to have a second chance at life, finally getting rid of the cancer. It makes you wonder if John Kramer got rid of the cancer, if he'd have been able to stop being Jigsaw, or if he would have stayed Jigsaw. I think he would have stayed Jigsaw. I don't think there's any question about that. But, you know, I'm sure some people probably thought about it. You know, obviously it crossed my mind in passing, but he's so far into the Jigsaw mindset at this point, there's no way he would stop. If anything, it would encourage him to just keep doing it more. Well, turns out this miracle cure was a scam, and the guy who turned him onto it was, in fact, a plant who was there in on the scam. He finds out that he was scammed and tracks down the people who scammed him. Because these are people who are taking money from cancer patients, giving them false hope, and fucking them over. So John Kramer tracks them down and starts putting them into his games. With just how fucking malicious what these people were doing is, this isn't one of the times that you're like, oh, I want them to get out. This is one of the times where you're like, John is absolutely justified. Like, he's not literally the most justified, obviously. Like, there's this one girl who's just a young girl that's kind of involved in it that Amanda actually sympathizes with. Yeah, Amanda's in this. There you go. There's another spoiler. But obviously, this is the most justified I have felt John Kramer is. Obviously, he's still going about it in the most psychotic ways because he's Jigsaw. But the reason I say is more justified in this one is because in most of the Saw movies, it's like, oh, you're sad. You don't appreciate your life. Here's a fucking horrible trap. Whereas in this, they actually were doing something malicious and vile. But he tracks them down and starts taking them out. And there's some interesting things that happen in this movie. For instance, there's a guy in a trap that we actually see make it out of the trap. That's such a rare phenomenon in Saw movies. Like, it's a guy you expect is going to die who actually gets out of the trap. It's the guy they put these, like, explosives in his arm, and he has to dig them out. And he actually does it. He actually gets them out. Maybe saying it was a rare occurrence wasn't correct, but I meant he seemed like the type of guy you would have thought would be fodder just to pad out the kill count. Because there's always at least one person who gets out of the trap in the Saw movies. But what I'm saying is, this guy didn't seem like he would be one of them, and it subverts that. Then there is some bullshit with some of the traps. There's some people that literally actually completed the goal, but it wasn't fast enough. Like, some of those were kind of bullshit. There's always a little bit of bullshit with Saw traps, because, you know, when you hear people say, oh, Jigsaw never killed anyone, oh, John's traps are always escapable, it's like, not really, like, kind of. But let's face it, John Kramer's traps even can be kind of bullshit. Like, sometimes they can even be Amanda tier traps. But, you know, with that bullshit in mind, that's in every Saw movie. There's always some traps that are kind of bullshit. An interesting thing that happens, too, is you actually get to see John Kramer in a trap. Part of the twist is, this obviously was part of his plan, was to get put into a trap, but you actually see a kid get put into it with him, which wasn't part of his plan. He clearly planned for it to be him and Amanda. And the lady who scammed him actually ends up surviving in the end, because it's her pitted against a guy who was working with her. And you can, like, see the disappointment in John's face when he sees that she's the one who survived. The pacing and tone of this movie is different than the other Saw movies in some regards, because like I said, just having John Kramer as the protagonist the whole time just makes it feel very unique and different from Saw movies, and it makes you wonder why it took him 10 fucking movies to do it. Hoffman is also in this movie. You hear his voice on the phone at one point, and then he's actually in the post-credits scene where they go after the guy who got John into this scam. It was cool to see Hoffman again. Hoffman is my favorite Jigsaw apprentice, which I don't know if that's a hot take, but I like Hoffman. I think he's a really cool character. So it was good to see him, even if it is brief. I knew Amanda was probably going to be in it. And for once, this is a movie where Amanda actually isn't cringy, because usually Amanda's kind of annoying and cringe and hard to deal with when you're watching the movie. But honestly, I didn't mind Amanda in this one. She was actually well written. She was not cringe. She was actually an interesting character. Like, she wasn't the best character. You know, obviously that's John. But she was better than she usually is. And it was interesting to see her humanized a little bit with how she sympathizes with the young girl who's a drug addict. Also, another thing worth mentioning is John barely uses the puppet in this movie. Most of it, he's face-to-face just standing there, looking them in the eye when he puts them in the trap, which is also a really cool touch. Overall, I would say Saw X is easily one of my favorite Saw movies. It might even be my favorite. At the very least, it's in the top 3. So, it's very good. I was very pleasantly surprised, and I'm very glad that Spencer talked me into watching it. If you're a fan of Saw, and you haven't seen Saw X because you think it's going to be bad, do yourself a favor and fucking watch it, because you could not be more wrong. It is a great Saw movie. And I may have just spoiled the shit out of it, but trust me, it'll still be worth it. Anyway, this has been Fugitive Red Eye, and I hope you enjoyed this review. Have a good one. Toodles!
Subscribe to Fugitive Red Eye.